In my interview, I will be talking with my grandmother about World War II and the events she went through at that historic event. First, I want to introduce the main points of the World War II timeline. World War II began on September 3rd, 1939, when the Prime Minister of Britain declared war on Germany because of their attack on Poland and Hitler's refusal to end his invasion. World War II involved 61 countries and 1.7 billion people, 3/4 of the world's population. An estimated 50 million people lost their lives. The United States entered World War II on December 8, 1940, after the Japanese attack of Pearl Harbor one day prior. The Japanese were part of the Axis powers with Germany. Six long years later, the war ended, with Germany and Japan surrendering. After Adolf Hitler, Germany's leader, had committed suicide, knowing that he would never win the war. Another reason Japan and Germany surrendered is because of the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
That's good.
Even today, the modern world is still living with the effects of World War II. So, the first thing I want to ask you is, what was it like growing up and where did you grow up?
I was born in San Francisco, and when the World War started, I was 5 years old, and we lived in San Francisco, and I had two brothers in the service at the time. So one was stationed at Iwo Jima, and another one was stationed in the Panama Canal. And my mother was a single mother raising her children at a very difficult time in her life, but living in San Francisco.
Okay. What type of school did you attend?
I went to Catholic school all my life. All through my whole life, I went to Catholic school.
Okay.
St. Charles, actually, in the city.
Did you practice any drills for a blackout or air raid drills when you were at school? Or
Yes, we did have some drills at school where they made us run into the yard for security purposes, and also for, not blackout so much as just alerting us to any kind of, places that we could hide, or if there was anything that was going to be related to the war.
Did you use, how much did things cost at that time?
Well, we know we were rationed an awful lot. There was very few, we had some food stamps, and we had coupon books, and we couldn't get a lot of things that were being produced because they were being sent to our war troops all over the country. And actually there was very little, food for us, but my mother did what she could, and she did, she handled it very well.
Did you play any sports or games?
Yes, there was a lot of different games that you could play outside. We had a lot of different, actually baseball was very big in that time, and I think mainly it was indoor sports, like Chinese checkers or different type of board games.
What was the fashion of that time?
Well, actually, it was Bobby sock time. It was loafers and little anklet socks and little full skirts, little sweaters, and it was really basically just whatever people could make with sewing, and but it was very, blouses, sweaters, skirts, that kind of thing.
Did you travel?
No, no traveling. No, there was no time for traveling at those times.
Well then, how'd you get around?
Well, actually, we use a lot of transportation, buses and trains, and there was no cars. I don't remember even my parents owning a car at that time. But if you needed to go somewhere, you get on a bus, and you pay your token. I think it was tokens in those days, and you get on a bus and go. But there wasn't much traveling.
What was your biggest fear?
Oh boy, my biggest fear, I think my mom and I both were always worried about my brothers coming home safely from the war. In those days you had I think you had these stars that were on your window, and it would indicate that you had how many people in your household were actually in the war, and my mother had 2 stars in a plaque hanging from her window. That would represent my 2 brothers who were in the service. And I would see my mother, who was very, very, very sad all the time, who was always worried about her 2 sons coming home safe and sound. Because you could very readily get a notice saying that your son had been wounded or captured or had died or something like that. But we were lucky to have them both come back safe.
Did you experience any air raid alerts?
No. None of that.
What were your overall feelings about the war?
Well, at an early age, I guess with the news and the newspapers and all the radio stations promoting, a lot of information coming from the government, telling us what the status of the war was, or Germany, what Germany was doing at the time, and we listened a lot about the Holocaust and about all those people who were being killed. And then we didn't have to worry about our servicemen over in the Philippines, and the world was in a real chaotic state. And so our worry was, do we survive this? How are we going to live? How are we going to get financial? My mother also was a single woman, like I said before, and she was working 2 jobs to support us. So it was very hard for us to, find time to spend with her, and it was very difficult at that time for her. But it worked out pretty good after.
Are there any other memories you would like to share?
Oh my goodness. There were times where the memories would be when we would all gather around our dinner table and talk about the war. We would talk about, we'd listen very intently to the broadcast on the radio, all of us listening to hear the results of any bombings or any serious things that were happening. But I think it was the gathering of the families together, keeping ourselves safe, and praying a lot so that all our friends and family would come home safely.
Mm-hmm. What was good about that time and what was bad?
Well, for a child of 10 years old, I think that we didn't have responsibilities of the adults, so we kind of just had a child's insight into going to school, coming home, sharing our daily routine, playing outside with our friends. We could play often into the night, and there was no fear of anything else, but the women had to take on a great responsibility to work all the jobs that the men had left behind. So we had a lot of women who were never at home with their children. So we had more of a communal atmosphere in our neighborhood where all the families would join together to help each other. And we would share meals, we would share good times, picnics, whatever, at that time without the men of the household being there.
So I think overall we can learn that it was very hard for people in the war and very hard for their families, and we as humans will probably never make that mistake again of making such a war. Thank you.